Alrighty, today gotta do a little bit of troubleshooting on this thing. Ever since we rebuilt the motor in it, the thing still hasn't quit using oil. And it wasn't really an overly big concern for a while, because when you rebuild, or the rings that you put in these motors when you rebuild them are chrome, and they're about the biggest bitch to get the wear in to begin with. But I'd still like to figure out what the hell's going on. So Friday I called out to Brad Maybaugh, who is the 310 Waukesha guy and also the Cummins conversion guy, and asked him what he thought about it. And Maybaugh's where we bought the engine kit and everything for it anyway, so that's what I thought. And he said, let's check the turbo, because he said new, rebuilt, whatever it is, they've been having trouble with the turbos on these things leaking oil. And this is it's considered a rebuilt, but basically it's the only thing on it that's not brand new are is the exhaust fan housing. The center section's new, the intake fan housing's new. So I mean, for all intents and purposes, it's a brand new turbo. But he said it doesn't matter. He said they've still had problems with them leaking. So he said that'd be the first thing he checked. And the other thing is, when we rebuilt this, or right after we got done rebuilding it, we didn't run break-in oil in it, because we basically stuck it in the field right away. Didn't have any time to, well, didn't have any access to a dyno and didn't have any time to do an actual break-in on it. But we figured since we were going right to chisel plowing with it, it'd get worked hard enough in the field, it would just set the rings on its own. Well, Brad also said that on these things, there's certain types of oil that if you run in them, won't let the rings seat right. So it may be a possibility that I'm gonna have to dump the oil, and before I start working ground this spring, put some break-in oil in it and run it out to Morley's and put it on the dyno for an hour or so. Just let it sit there and run. He said there's a slight possibility that we may have to pull the head off and hone the cylinders and re-ring it, which would be a bitch since it's got brand new sleeves, pistons, rings in it to begin with, but such is life. The weird part about the whole oil usage problem is there will be days when I'm working it and it'll use oil, and then there'll be days when I'm working it and it won't use any oil. And it may not use oil for 2-3 days in a row, and then it'll use oil again. Which is... it's just weird. Everything I told Brad about it kept making him think it's that turbo. So... I'm hoping, and that's kind of was my thought even before I called him, was it something to do with that turbo. So he and I were thinking along the same lines, and everything I told him just reinforced his thinking that it might be a turbo issue. So he also said, because he said that what Garrett, or actually I don't think Garrett owns them anymore. I can't remember who the heck bought out Garrett turbos. But anyway, whoever's making the turbos now said it's got to do with the engine's high oil pressure. Well, Brad just laughed. He said, yeah, apparently they don't know that these engines aren't blessed with an overly abundant amount of oil pressure, because warm, this thing will carry about 38 pounds, and when you or warm wide open will carry about 38 pounds. And warm idling, it'll carry about 25-ish pounds. And he said, yeah, when they told me that, I just said, well, I got a 5.9 Cummins sitting here with a whole set turbo on it that will run 100 psi oil pressure, and it won't use a drop oil through that turbo. He said, yeah, they're just making excuses. It's a crock of shit. So, he said, I've always wanted to try to put a waste-gated hull set off of a 5.9 Cummins on a 310. So he said, if you get to that point and that's what you want to do, just let me know. So, if it does turn out to be a turbo problem, maybe get a waste-gated turbo put on it. Well, we found the problem. First thing I noticed when I got the hood off was all this right here, which is kind of a telltale sign of what was going to happen. So I took the intake hose off, and I don't know how well you'll be able to see it, but grabbed out of the shaft, and it's not supposed to move like that. So alright. Pull the exhaust elbow off and feel the soot, and it's not really sticky, but it smells like oil. So come around to the intake side over here and pull the hose off, and first thing I see is that right there, the inside of the intake manifold is a little shiny. So I get the hose all the way off and look in there. I don't know if you can see it, but right down there at the bottom there's a pool of oil. So it's been blowing oil past the seal in the center section of the turbo. The pisser of the whole thing is, that's a brand new $825 Garrett turbo. We put that on there when we did the head the first time, but that was before we knew that the oil pan was full of sand. So I ran it for a season. It ran all the sand through the turbo, wiped the turbo out again. But at that point it was new. So we took it up. We bought it from Michigan Turbo. So when we went through and redid the bottom end of the motor, we sent it back up to Michigan Turbo to have them fix what the sand screwed up. The way that fan shaft seal or feels, we're wondering if they actually ever did anything to it at all. They just took it out of the box, looked at it, and threw it or sent it back to us. So looks like I get to pull the turbo back off and have it rebuilt again. we got took on that deal. But it does, I mean, I'm pissed that it is the turbo, but on the other hand, I'm not too mad that it's the turbo, because at least it means I don't got to pull the head back off and do something with the pistons and sleeves. So, yeah. Shit. Probably gonna take it down to Majera Diesel in Crown Point, Indiana. They're the ones that rebuilt the pump on it. I'm pretty sure they do turbos too. So if they do, that's probably where it's gonna end up going. And since we got to pull the turbo off anyway, I'm gonna call out to Maybaugh tomorrow and see, because there's supposed to be a heat shield off the back of this manifold to protect the return fuel line. Well, we didn't know about it until after we rebuilt the motor, because that was back before we knew what we were doing on these 310s. And that's actually what this bolt and that bolt and that bolt are for, is for that heat shield. So I'm going to call out to Maybaugh and see if I can't get a new heat shield for it and get gaskets for it, and we'll pull the manifold and do it all up right in one shot. I guess that's where things stand right now. So and while I'm thinking about it, this is something that we added. That's the hydraulic oil filter. And the reason we did that was because the way the hydraulics are set up on these 55 series, because the main hydraulic oil filter is right here. And there's pump. Well, the way the hydraulics are set up on these things, the oil is only actually getting filtered when you use the hydraulics, because this is a it's a variable displacement piston pump, which means that when there's no load on the hydraulics, displacement goes to zero and it's not moving any oil. So unless you're using the hydraulics, the oil is not getting filtered. Well, they got this here handy dandy oil cooler pump for the hydraulics. It's a 5 GPM continuous flow pump, so whenever the engine's running, it's constantly pumping hydraulic oil. So, and the other bad thing about, why they set this thing up this way at the factory, I don't know, but the way it's set up, the pump is actually sucking through this filter housing. Well, hydraulic pumps aren't built to suck, they're meant to push. So, and that's why you see a lot of 55 series tractors with blue pumps on them, because they've had to replace that pump because they've roached it. Well, having to suck through that filter doesn't help the longevity none, and we actually had to put a new pump on this one, which is why that one's blue. That was like $1,000 right there. So what we did was we got rid of the oil filter element in the actual hydraulic filter, and just put a strainer in there, a screen strainer, to catch all the big chunks, keep anything from going through the pump. And then we put this filter up here. And basically, this is a 15, or no, how many gallon is this thing? 5 gallon? Yeah, 5 gallon hydraulic unit. And that's a 5 GPM pump. So basically, every 60 seconds, that whole hydraulic, or all 5 gallons of hydraulic oil get filtered. So we made a bracket that takes 2 bolts off of the thermostat housing here. Comes up, this is a Parker hydraulic oil filter base, and basically normally this thing would just have a if I remember, it's been so long so I can't remember, I'm pretty sure it was a steel line that went all the way from here to here, and it just went up, came over about like this does here, and it just stuck in this hose for the oil cooler. So all we did was put this filter here, bent up a new line to go here, and then added this line. So why they couldn't have done something like that to begin with is beyond me, but it makes a whole lot more sense. So Dad said he had a bunch of guys down at Rand Tool asking him how we did that, so that's how we did it. So I guess run this thing back down in the barn, since it's going to be kind of immobile for a while, and get that turbo pulled off so I could take it in tomorrow to get fixed. So, but I guess that does it for this one. We'll catch you guys on the next one.